Okay, here we are back at the messy workbench, and I'm going to be using that wonderful Elmer's wood filler. I'll be using it to fill some seams on this model, but not in the usual way. There won't be any sanding involved in this. You can see I've mixed some of the wood filler up with some water. And my original idea was to use that fancy cotton swab, but instead I'm going to use that little this little stiff bristled brush, which should work as a pretty decent little spatula. We're going to find out. I'm always experimenting, and since this brush isn't much good for anything else, we're going to try it for this. I just brush it on kind of like paint. Try to work it into any seams, gaps, trenches, anything that Italeri has put on there just to give us something to do. And go around the whole model looking for these areas that need some filling. Put a little of that water and putty mix in there. Don't use too much water, just a little bit. You can see that you can kind of see from watching this video what the consistency of the putty would be. It's working pretty well, so pretty happy with it. And one thing you will immediately notice is how quickly this material dries. And it's very fast, which makes sense, I suppose. The beauty of this system is that it allows me to fill the gaps that I want to fill, but I can also partially fill panel lines or other details that have been inscribed into the surface of the model. I don't have to fill them 100%. I can just partially fill them. It all depends on really what I do after I've applied this initial application. Because that's what you do with applications, you apply them. Is that correct? I don't know. I think it is. Okay, the weapon of choice in doing the final finishing here is one that I'm sure you remember, and if not, your mom remembers, and if you're a mom, or were, you're going to definitely remember it. It's what's known as the spit on a Kleenex. Now, you could get a cotton t-shirt, and if you're going to go really green, and you could get a little dish of water, and you could do that, but there's something about the visceral quality of spitting on a Kleenex. It harkens us back to days when we were covering our faces with chocolate syrup, and our mother would dab at us, scrub at us with a tissue, and there was always something about those purse tissues, right? Am I wrong here? They always had a unique smell, kind of a combination of Chanel No. 5 and Juicy Fruit. But I digress. The spit tissue, or for those of us who want to act like grown-ups, the cotton cloth with a little water on it can be used. Not too much water is needed. Too much water and you're just going to totally dissolve the putty and ruin everything. You're also going to get water down inside the model, which is bad. Because water inside a model will sit there for days. I don't know why, but you can store water that way for days, and then, of course, eventually it'll just run right out in the middle of something you're working on when you least expect it. So you never want to get water inside the model if you can help it. Okay, it's easy to remove this stuff. Its affinity for plastic, though, is more than it appears to be. It doesn't just flake off; it sticks to the plastic remarkably well, and then when it dries, it does. It's not 3M auto body putty. It doesn't merge with the plastic. It doesn't have a solvent base. But it's amazing how well it sticks to the plastic. Okay, now I'm using one of my homemade stippling brushes. It's just a regular old god-awful Umbro red sable brush. Made from these sables with naturally curly hair. And this has been, the useless bristles have been cut off, and the brush is, now it's just a little tiny short brush, and it works really well here for removing the putty from places where it doesn't belong, like down in those cannon troughs, or other details where you don't want it at all, like in an air vent or an intake or something like that. And you can take that bristle brush, or you could use a micro brush and get in there and scrub out the putty. Now that looks pretty reasonable. That looks pretty good right there. And if there is a problem, if you can see something that doesn't look quite right, you can just get more of the putty. And I'm using this little brush as a spatula, and I'm going to go in there and put more of the putty on there. It's really a way of sculpting the surface without having to sand. This saves me from several things I hate doing. First of all, sanding. Just don't like it. Number two, breathing dust. Don't like that either. And as you can see here, you can even develop a certain amount of, once you've developed a certain amount of panache. Yeah, I said it. You can go ahead and goop this stuff on, and then you can actually go after it with your finger. This is maybe a modification of the, if you recall, the mom finger, the spit on the finger, that she would use to get rid of that last bit of chocolate syrup from behind your ears. And so there is our finished or somewhat finished product. The beauty of it is that it was easy. Be sure to check out my Patreon and buy me a coffee. While you're there, you can think about becoming a subscriber, and I still need 500 subscribers to qualify for the special hat